Crazy week for announcement. Rachmaninoff, Wonderboy, Colby, Edwards, Pereira, Prohaska. The list goes on and on and on. They keep on coming in thick and fast. Why is Paddy Pimblett and Tony Ferguson gone to the top of the list here in terms of talking points, in terms of the bobbleheads talking about it on a daily basis, and in terms of controversy? I'm going to have a little look here, just see what the people are saying, see is there a little bit of gaslighting going on there, and just open up the conversation about this fight and why it's such a contentious one.
Hey, Paddy, that was a close one.
No, it wasn't. That wasn't close.
Are you serious?
So I put out this post yesterday. Every ex-fighter who also works for the UFC thinks Tony can win easily. If you think that the UFC are giving Paddy, a 40-year-old coming off of 6 straight defeats, is favourable matchmaking, then apparently you're a casual. That's what I put out there. It had a really good response, and I was obviously referring to the Michael Bisping. Doesn't get the hate behind Tony Ferguson and Paddy Pimblett. So the question I'm asking is, are the usual suspects getting behind the UFC, running cover to make sure that we don't have a situation where the majority of people that actually saw the matchmaking, the likes of Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz, we don't want to see that again. We don't want that sort of a backlash again. Obviously, Paddy Pimblett is not Khamzat Chimaev, but we did speak about this in a previous video just in terms of youth being on his side and tenacity. We're going to get into who we think can actually win this fight and why all of a sudden we see article after article coming out from these ex-UFC fighters who just so happen to work for the UFC in some way, shape or form are now saying that this is not bad matchmaking. I don't know what you're talking about and you're actually crazy for questioning this. Let's dig into it. I suppose we'll go straight to my buddy here. Chael Sonnen says Paddy Pimblett is going to get whipped by Tony Ferguson at UFC 296. Why would he say that? That's what we're trying to dig down into. Why would he actually come out and say that? Does he believe that? Believing something and being truthful doesn't really have anything because we're promoting fights here, right? That's what people that work for the UFC or that have close connections to the UFC are doing. It's not really about telling the truth, but who's to say? Maybe Chael does believe it. In my opinion, let's go straight off the Chael Sonnen one. Is Tony gonna whip Paddy Pimblett? Everybody knows how I feel. It's not really about a kind of an unbiased opinion here. It's just a personal opinion. I don't think that Paddy Pimblett is a great fighter. We saw him getting exposed against Jared Gordon. He does fight with his chin up in the air. We know that Tony Ferguson has heavy hands. That's actually not a cliche to say, I don't think, in terms of a legend like this guy and the battles that he's been in. If we look at the fights against Chandler and if we look at the fights against Gaethje and even Bobby Green, all these fights which he did lose, he did do damage in the early rounds. Now, is it a case of he's going to come on very heavy in the early rounds, or is it a case of he's been unlucky because he's been fighting a set of killers? I don't know what it is, and no one can really say because it's literally a grey area. We can't pinpoint why he fades in these fights. The only thing that we can look at are the guys that he's fighting. Does Paddy Pimblett offer that sort of an opponent when it comes to this fight? I don't know, but it feels like there's a lot of cover been run. Chael's done 2 videos on this. What's his opinion of the matchmaking?
Paddy the Baddy versus Tony Ferguson. Are you guys starting to see where this fight is perfect?
All of a sudden people are leaning very heavily towards Tony Ferguson. Don't get me wrong, I want Tony to win. Like, if we're actually being honest about this, I want Tony to go in there and do the job. I would absolutely love it. Wouldn't it just be like just fairy tale ending for Tony if he went in there, starches Paddy Pimblett and then retires? I would absolutely love that. I don't believe, and I don't think anybody else believes, that if Tony does get the job done, that he's going to go on some title run after it. So it's perfect matchmaking. Okay, that's what Chael thinks. Let's see what Dana thinks about the matchmaking.
The matchmaking and the timing on this fight is excellent and couldn't be more perfect.
Excellent and couldn't be more perfect. Okay, so we got the memo. We're all on the same page here, right? Okay, jump over here to my good buddy Brendan Schaub. Let's see what he thinks. Let's see, did the memo go out to everybody, or maybe it was a text message. Maybe it was probably a text message. Let's have a little listen.
Tony Ferguson, Paddy Pimblett. So when this first got announced, a close friend of mine texted me, goes, it's not announced yet, but I think they're doing Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett. And I go, finally Tony gets a winnable fight. Okay, so you got the text message from your close personal friend who has the inside track on these perfect matchmaking decisions, and you thought, finally, this is it. Okay, cool.
Already there's people out there talking shit, right, saying, nah, they're just giving Paddy somebody easy. Tony Ferguson's not easy.
So if you question this perfect matchmaking, you're just a troll talking shit online, according to Bisping. This dude's takes are shocking. They're off the Richter scale in terms of being crazy. Over the last 2 days, talking about Israel Adesanya, he tries so hard to sit on the fence that it must hurt his brain. Pick a side, man. Pick an opinion. Stop worrying about offending people. Look at the likes of Sean Strickland. The dude is saying what he wants and he's not being cancelled. Yes, he's the champion champion of the world. You're the ex-champion of the world. Open your mouth, grow a pair of balls, and stop trying to sit on the fence and worrying about every single thing you say. It's patronizing to listen to. Saying that the fans that question this perfect matchmaking are just trolls talking shit online is actually offensive. There's a lot of commentators, I even heard my good buddy Luke Thomas over there saying that, yeah, the UFC are giving Paddy this fight to try keep the star on the rise. All the shills that are talking about this is an easy fight for Tony Ferguson, they're all saying the same thing. It always starts with, he can totally win this fight. Then they start knocking what Paddy's been at just to kind of get a little bit of balance, I guess. And then they go to, we're not saying that he's going to win this fight, we're just saying that he can win this fight. Okay? That's what the memo said. That's what the text message said. Cool, we're all on the same page here. All these guys under the UFC umbrella have quenched the conversation in terms of Paddy Pimblett is being built up and protected by the UFC. People that are willing to pop out there and in glimpses tell the truth, they can see what it is. But we seem to be in this situation where there is video after video, article after article. If we look at these articles here, look, this is in the last day. Chael son and Paddy Pimblett is going to get whipped by Tony Ferguson. Michael Bisping questions why people talking shit about Paddy Pimblett and Tony Ferguson. Brendan Schaub is saying finally a good matchup for Tony. There you have it, quote today. It's a very winnable fight. I think Chael Sonnen hit the nail on the head when he said, on that card, when we talk about the press conference, we know that that press conference is probably going to be interrupted by Ian Gary with the extremely whiny voice, and he's going to try look past Vicente Luque. I don't think he's going to talk shit to him, but he's going to try get smart with Colby Covington trying to build something. It'll be cringe and it is what it is. But if we look at that press conference and we look at that fight week and we look at that fight card, 100% we're interested in watching Tony Ferguson and Paddy Pimblett because it's a spectacle. Tony brings the heat, and we know that Paddy Pimblett might have 600 or 700 fans that are interested in watching him as well, but the majority of the heat will be there for Tony, and to see what happens. People are going to be going for Tony the same way when Khamzat got the fight against Nate Diaz. We were all thinking in the back of our minds, okay, this is going to turn out terrible. Khamzat's going to go in there and ragdoll him. But in the back of our minds, we were thinking, imagine if Nate Diaz put him out. Imagine Nate Diaz catches him. Imagine he submits him. That's what we were hoping for, because with these legends, we want to put our weight behind them. Is that what these guys are doing? Is that what Chael Sonnen, Michael Bisping, Brendan Schaub, is that what they're doing? Are they trying to get behind a UFC legend and there's no ulterior motives there? There's no cover stories. There's no protecting of the UFC trying to build up a very unlikable guy like Paddy Pimblett. Is that what they're doing? If it's that, then I'm perfectly fine with it. If we're going off recent history of these analysts running cover and protecting people, then we don't look any further than the Israel Adesanya situation. Doesn't matter what he does, doesn't matter what he says, these guys will continuously run cover. Even when they touch on something negative that he does, like the DUI recently, they do it in a very obnoxious and disgusting way where they don't really go after him, they don't really condemn it, they pretty much admit to doing it themselves and it's not really a big deal. Over the last few months, you look at the behaviour of Israel Adesanya and you think to yourself, why is this not being called out by all these ex-fighters that have YouTube channels and talk on a daily basis? Why are they not covering it? Then you start asking questions. Then you get to the situation with Ian Gary. You see the behaviour that he put out there against Neil Magny. None of them went after him. They all kind of said that it wasn't really too tasteful, but look, he's really great on the mic. And then you looked across social media and people were disgusted. The engagement wasn't there. You'd see MMA Twitter accounts putting out, there's a banger coming up with Ian Gary and Vicente Luque, and it gets like 10 likes, no comments, no retweets. And you're kind of thinking, the crowd isn't behind this guy. Why are all the ex-fighters behind him? And then, as I said, the questions keep on coming. Is there pernicious behaviour at play here? You get the Paddy Pimblett situation. If we jump over here, the likes of Brendan Schaub are talking about Paddy Pimblett being a future champion. Do your homework on him, son. What has changed? Have you soured on Paddy Pimblett because of the carry-on after the Jared Gordon fight? Most people did. Most normal people that consume this stuff turned on him right there and then. These guys don't seem to know where they are with this whole thing. There seems to be a memo or a text that went out and everyone was privy to it, and anybody else just seems to be a troll online talking shit. We'll see what the outcome is when these two guys fight. I think it'll be a good fight to watch. I'm rooting for Tony in it for no ulterior motives except for the dude's a legend. And it's not that I dislike Paddy, even though I do. Not to the extent where I want to see him lose over and over again. People say that to me about Ian Gary and Israel Adesanya. Yes, I don't like people that are unlikable. Most people don't. And that's why the UFC and these commentators got to run cover for him. But that's not why I want to see them lose. I want to see them lose to expose the media and the big corporation that is boosting this stuff and that are gaslighting and running propaganda for something that we are not not interested. We see this majoritively in mainstream media, in mainstream news. We are told lies on a daily basis. And we're supposed to believe that when you jump over to the UFC, who are owned by Disney, who are a disgusting organization in general, that it's somehow going to change. And that all this socio-political stuff isn't going to infuse itself in sport. It's already in there, guys. Yes, Dana White lets people speak. Love that. But I think there's a narrative always being played here with this game, and I'm not interested in it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Maybe like, subscribe, share. Appreciate you.